You're listening to the Hard Money Podcast, hosted by the economic activist himself, founder of Rad Diversified, CEO of Tax Auction Investors, and the visionary behind the American Survivalist Project, Dutch Mendenhall.
Let's start this podcast. So, Pam and Ray, welcome. Happy to have you guys. Excited to see you here in California.
Yeah.
We're excited to be here.
How long you been here?
Tuesday?
Tuesday. Yeah.
Tuesday?
Tuesday we rolled in.
Days.
Yep.
Rolled in. I think that's one of the kind of cool things I wanted to talk about today is like the lifestyle that you guys have chosen, because it's a fun, exciting lifestyle that is different than like traditional, right?
Right.
And it's kind of alternative. So, like tell people about your lives. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you're on here today, and I can introduce more about you guys and stuff to people. But the reality is, like, you're very real people and friends, and I'm excited about like sharing some of the cool stuff in your life with people. So tell people about your guys' lifestyle.
Well, back in October of 29.
Lifestyle,
the
like
29th.
Lifestyle, like think I'm like telling people like tell them about your swinger lifestyle or something.
In your lifestyle. We packed our bags, sold our house in October of 2019, and hit the road. I mean, it was our plan and our dreams to do it since we've been together, basically, because neither one of us traveled very much when we were younger, and even our kids didn't think we were going to do it, so they were shocked when we left.
And Ray worked out in the weather his whole life, so he was ready to get out of the snow.
Yeah,
so he told me he had been retired for 5 years, and he said, Pam, you can either retire and go with me, or you can come visit me, but I'm leaving. I'm not going to see another cold day. So I said, well, I guess I'll retire and go. And, it took some getting used to, packing up, moving every so many weeks, however long you decide to stay. We usually stay anywhere from a week to 3 weeks, maybe a month.
An RV lifestyle.
It's
an
an RV lifestyle.
Is that how you describe it?
Yes.
Does that lifestyle have like a community name, like where if like you get like on a site and you're traveling and stuff?
Oh, there's lots of RV sites. You can, a lot of times, like we have a Fleetwood, so manufacturers of your RVs, there's websites for those and Facebook sites, and it's just, I guess RVing would be what you would look under.
That's cool. That's cool.
And then being together 24/7, that's
tough.
That's very tough.
That's tough.
Yeah.
No matter how much you love the other person, that's tough.
It really is tough.
Is.
But we stay in the warmer weather, so it's not like we're stuck inside. We go out. We're out. I can go for a walk if he, gets on my nerves, or he can take off and do the same.
So Vanessa and I have a rule that we established about a year into marriage, right? So when we dated, it was always, I was running, right? So I was on the road. I was going to different properties in different parts of the country. I was just doing constantly, running around on the road and stuff. And so then we got married, like you said, 24/7, 7 days a week together. And we just established a rule about a year into marriage, like 1 weekend a month we're apart. Like we spend 48 hours, 2 days. She goes somewhere, I go somewhere, she takes. But that's a rule of our marriage. Like,
well, we can't do that RVing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a choice.
Yeah.
You could spend a day. You could spend a day apart, right?
Yeah.
If you choose to.
Normally, if things get a little rough, she goes on a walk, or and we both.
What's your biggest argument about?
Probably work.
Yeah.
Because he wants to be the boss and I want to be the boss.
Yeah, we were both bosses.
We were both bosses. And I want it done my way. He wants it done his way.
We'll talk about work. You retired.
Right.
You got bored. So what's work life like for you guys now?
Well, we do the maintenance for Houston remotely most of the time. In the wintertime, we go to Houston and stay there for 3 to 5 months, depending on what our schedule is. And we can just do it whenever we want to do it. I guess we can get up and do it in the morning and then take off and and do what we want to do, or we can do something in the morning, come back in the afternoon. We just do it whenever we want to do it.
So let me give everybody context. So Pam and Ray run our Houston market for us. They're inner circle members, entrepreneurs, right? Business owners, and investing in real estate, investing with us. And Ray has a strong, general contracting background, and Pam has a strong background of administration and managing things. And so, I had asked them if they could, if they wanted to help, or maybe they asked me if they could help. I don't know how
you
it
asked
worked.
us.
Yeah, I asked you if you wanted to help, and you guys
And
said,
I said
yeah.
no. I said no.
At first, yeah. At
Ray
first.
said yes.
Yeah, I said yes.
Yeah.
At first, yeah.
But you guys are, have gotten really involved and went from kind of helping to, running the rehabs and running maintenance and it's pretty cool. I like it because it's, someone we can trust to do it. And you guys get to make extra money with part of your retirement, which is awesome. So it's pretty cool.
Right.
And it keeps
really
our mind
enjoy
working.
It. Yeah, it does. I mean, the hardest part is staying on top of new contractors, and because the old contractors we used to have, they get busy and then they don't have time for us. So, but I mean, there's really not a major bump in the road at all. It's been really pretty easy and a lot of fun, really.
A lot of fun. I love working with Molly.
Mm-hmm.
I work real closely with her and help her out in a lot of her work as well. So
for Podcast Nation who's not as familiar with our real estate, Molly runs all our property management. Molly's also my sister-in-law, which is crazy when you think of Molly's background. She was a music therapist, right? And when Dory came over, my brother, to work on the real estate part of our business, she just kind of came over and started helping. And then she took over property management, for a $70 million portfolio now. It's the total portfolio. And
that's a lot.
Pretty incredible that she, owns it and, handles it like a beast. So
yes, she does.
It's pretty amazing. Talk about that relationship, how did you guys circled the world, right? Searching, finding, looking for different resources, different answers and stuff. Talk about how that you came to, how you became a part of us versus something else.
Well, when I retired, it took me about a month to be bored out of my mind. So I had always wanted to buy houses and rehab them and sell them, but number one, I never really had the opportunity or the money to do it. So as the kids have grown up and moved out, we started having money, and I started searching for something to do to.
We became a webinar junkie.
Yeah.
He also absolutely did. I'd come home and he'd say, "I was on this webinar today."
Well, even before that, though, we got involved in a group called Fortune Builders. And I went to a half-a-day free seminar, and then I come back and told Pam about it and told her that I bought tickets to do a weekend seminar, which she wasn't real happy about, but because it was a sunny weekend.
Fall weekend.
So
I worked in
every detail she remembers.
Well, I worked in an office, so the weekends were really important to me. And he's always been the entrepreneur in our family. I've always been the one, you work hard, you make a good living. And, so I was rarely on board with it.
So anyway, we went to this webinar and Pam got excited. So we bought into their system, and basically is all we got out of it was information and how to do things 4 years backwards from where we were at, because the information was outdated. And, you're always supposed to hire somebody to do your work, because if you do it, then you're not out buying properties, or you're losing money on not getting other properties. Well, we really couldn't afford that, because there is no way I could ever find a contractor to do it for the price that everybody else was saying it.
Well, because you've been a contractor, you've been in
Exactly.
GC, you know how it works. So
Exactly. And it's hard to cut loose of that also, you know. So
You just started doing it yourself.
I just started going back to where her telling me that I was a webinar junkie. I decided right then and there I was tired of putting money out. So I'll just sign up for 30-day, you know, most of them's got 30 days. And if you drop out, then they don't take your credit card. So that's what I did for probably about 6 months, you know. And then I stumbled upon Dustin Hahn with the tax liens and deeds. And so I got really excited about that because it got to the point where people were getting on board with the buying the houses and flipping them, but they were raising the prices of the house to where you really couldn't afford to buy it, fix it, and sell it for what they were going for. So then we got involved with Dustin Hahn. I told Pam.
Well, you and Kenny talked several times.
Yes.
Several times. And Ray kept saying, my wife just doesn't want to do it. We've been burned before. She just doesn't want to do it. And Kenny'd say, well, what time does she get home from work? Ray said, I better check with her first, you know. So he's the one that got us out to Houston.
Yes.
To the live event.
For the Lean On Me event. And we were really impressed. So we did buy into the system. And then I think it was maybe the following month, we found out that you and Dustin Hahn had splitting. Mm-hmm. And we thought.
And I said, here we go again. We just put our money out and we're not going to get anything out of it. That's exactly what I thought.
But you explained it really well when you did split. You know, you were wanting to get involved with the people and not selling the systems. And that's what we were looking for. So,
yeah, I was just done with the gurus and making them money, right? And not seeing the real estate side of the students taken care of, right? Mm-hmm. I was just in a place of frustration, and it wasn't necessarily, didn't have a lot to do with Dustin even per se, right? It had to do with the fact that I just saw a different model, a different way,
different avenue,
a different way of doing business. Mm-hmm. And, you know, first and foremost, you know, like relationship with the average coach mentor relationship was, you give me $30,000 to $50,000. I'm going to set up some group conference calls. I'm going to give you some tools. I'm going to answer questions. I'm going to go tell you what to do. Right. And after 6 to 12 months, our relationship is over.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And good luck to you at that point.
Right.
Exactly.
And I'm saying, like, if somebody gives me, it's a common frustration with mine was customer service in society, right? If somebody gives me $30,000 to $50,000, that should be a lifetime relationship, right? It should be, you know, a connection, a bond, you know, and granted, people continue to earn connection and bond in relationship, but like that whole kick somebody to the curb, right, was really kind of gross to me.
Right.
And then what was even grosser to me was like the 1 to 5% rule, which was if 1 to 5% of your people are succeeding, you're kicking ass, you know, and like that's gross to me. Right. Because if you give me that kind of money, I have an obligation, in my opinion, a responsibility to see you succeed, right? Granted, a lot of the responsibility also falls on you,
right?
But I have an obligation to have a system where not 1 to 5% can succeed, where 100% could succeed, and where, you know, for us, you know, 80 to 90% do succeed, right? And in the last, I think, 4 years, we're at 100%, right? That have, you know, succeeded on every single inner circle member, you know, joined us, made money. And that's not necessarily what the podcast is about, but it was more that frustration with the guru business, having been a consultant and working in that world for a number of years, and then them also not seeing the real estate side.
Right.
I could never fathom how real estate gurus didn't have real estate portfolios.
Right.
Right. Like large real estate portfolios it's just mind blowing to me. So there's where like the Dustin thing was like, I was just at a point where I had a way I wanted to do business, and I wanted to grow $100 million investment fund, which we're 3/4 of the way to that goal. Right. and he wanted to grow $100 million education company. And I just, I'm great with education. I love education. I think we teach and train as well as anybody, but that's not how I want to make my money.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was an interesting time in business for sure. Partnerships are hard.
Right.
Partnerships are really hard. I mean, marriage partnerships, someone you like and you love is hard. So imagine someone that you don't get to go to bed with at night that you still got to be in partnership with.
Right.
It's pretty intense. Have you done many partnerships over the years in business besides with us? And
no, not really. I mean,
yeah.
I was
you and Gabe were in partnership in the roofing company that you had,
Yeah.
our son, but
I mean, it was kind of like a family partnership, it wasn't. And then when the economy come around and crashed, then we ended up losing that because we were a union roofing and sheet metal company, and they didn't, unions didn't have any work then. So, yeah. So, I mean, per se, it was a good company, but we just went flat whenever we didn't have enough capital to keep us floating for a couple of years, basically, is what it amounted to. So,
yeah.
And we never really had the opportunity. You always wanted to have partnership. He was the entrepreneur. He always wanted something different, but we had 5 kids we were raising. We had bills. We had all these kind of things that we had to do. And I was always the one that was in charge of the money, and we couldn't afford to do those things. So we just never did.
Well, you do now.
We do now, and we love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Good.
Wish we could have had the opportunity, and we tell our kids now, you need to take the opportunity. Don't say you don't have the opportunity, because if we had done it sooner, we would be further along than what we are. But yeah, we love being in this company. We love doing everything that we do.
I always I try to be really careful. I always try to teach people but myself more than anybody, right? To be careful of echoes, right? And it's like the echo of the past. Like what you would have wished you could have done in the past doesn't matter anymore.
Right.
Exactly.
And like I always, like, one of my echoes that I have is like when I played college baseball, right? And like the professional versus non-professional, playing more or being better, or how did I interact with coaches or teammates or different things, like that's an echo for me, right? But then I start to shift the echo to like, well, the reason, I'm an entrepreneur is because of my experience back then. I just said no one's going to control my future.
Right.
No one's going to control my destiny. No one's going to control what I do in business. No one. Right. And so that's what I turn that echo into for me. Right. And I hear echoes for people all the time about their parents. And like my parents have been dead for 25 years. So the echo for me is a lot easier to control than someone whose parents are still alive.
Right.
And I was listening to Jordan Peterson. I don't know if you guys have ever heard him, but he's a podcaster, and he was just talking about like every child at some point in time has to symbolize the death of a parent, because if they don't ever symbolize the death of a parent, even if their parents are alive, then they never separate fully as an individual, and that can be a struggle. But those echoes are much harder for someone whose parents are alive and stuff. I don't know, like you guys have had a lifetime of experience. Are there echoes that like you kind of shift the view so that you can make them productive for you now? It's a weird question.
Well, I think the echo was that you work hard and you make a living, because that's what we were taught as kids. You work hard, you make a living, you get a decent wage, and you retire, and that's life.
Live off your savings and your pension.
And so our echo is that there's more out there than to do that. You should have your own destiny, take care of how you are going to succeed and be able to retire. And I could have never retired at the age I am if we hadn't invested in real estate.
And we couldn't do what we're doing now if we hadn't invested in real estate. So,
what's that?
With you.
What's that feeling like though?
It's like freedom. I mean, when you wake up in the morning, if you want to go somewhere, you go. If you don't, You don't have to.
It's weird though, right?
It's very weird.
It's strange.
It is strange.
Especially when you've worked out in construction or even just had a full-time job working all your life. I mean, it's like being a kid again almost.
Do you ever feel guilt?
What I feel guilty about is I can't be at home for everything that goes on back in Indiana where we're from. You know, we've had some deaths of friends. We've had family deaths that we've went back for, but you know, you just can't go back for everything. You can't go back for every wedding. You can't go back for every funeral. You can't go back for every graduation. You know, that's when I have guilt.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you have to choose your life, right?
Yeah.
But you also want to choose a life of support.
Right.
Because it is a big part of life. So it's interesting. For me, when I was thinking guilt, I was thinking like I used to feel, even I was years into being an entrepreneur and owning my own business, when I would take a day like during the middle of the week, right? And I'd work from home. And I'd probably work during that day, but I'd work a little bit less. So I'd be a little bit less aggressive, right? With the work day. Like at the end of the day, I would just feel guilt because I wasn't working. And it was so built to me, like you're saying, to work.
Right.
And to grind and to work and to grind. And for me, it's interesting. I did it in baseball and I burnt out. I did it as a baseball coach and I burnt out. And it wasn't until I was an executive recruiter. I remember the guy's name to this day. His name was Casey Ritchie. He was like a national director of executive recruitment at the company I worked for. And I was doing pretty well. And one day he says to me, I was working like 68 hours. I was going to burn out again. And he was like, when are you going to stop being so effing stupid and start listening to me and doing exactly the way I tell you to do it, Dutch? And so I went to like a 30 to 40 hour work week at that point, and my success shot through the roof. And that was kind of mind blowing to me because my upbringing was work harder, out succeed other people. And even with like Kobe Bryant, you know, I don't know if you guys are basketball people, but everybody knows who Kobe is.
Everybody knows who he is. Yes.
But they're like taking his work ethic to the high heavens.
Yeah.
And outwork. And a lot of other people say that too, but I kind of have a different opinion is just work smart, you know, and outwork smart. But I also think in life, for me, like there's like a tether that you're pulling on, and you kind of got to let the tether come to you and continue to pull on it, because if you just try to force it, then like it's like you kind of destroy, like for whatever reason it doesn't work for me. Yeah, I don't know if like as retired, do you kind of see what do you see?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I don't feel guilty doing what we do, but I wished everybody could do it or everybody could see it. You know, when we go see something, we just left the Grand Canyon. I was like, everybody has to, and I know you went last year. Everybody has to go see the Grand Canyon. There's just, you can't explain it. It's unexplainable. And we've seen so many things that I wished everybody.
But you've been to
could see
Zion
that.
too, right?
Yes.
No, we have not been to Zion.
Zion is kind of like a reverse Grand Canyon.
No, we haven't been to Zion.
So to me, Zion beats the Grand Canyon.
Oh, does it? Okay.
So the Grand
See, we haven't
Canyon
been
is
there.
like down, right? And you're looking at the canyon, whereas Zion is up.
Up.
Oh, okay.
And so it's like you're seeing the canyon up. And it's just
Okay.
The visual experience is, it's like the first time I went to Colorado as a kid, right? Yeah, growing up in Iowa, first time I went to Colorado and I saw the mountains and the snow and the green on the mountains, I was like just blown away visually. Just I'd never. And you guys probably have those experiences now, RVing around the country all
absolutely.
the
We
time.
came from Indiana, you know, no mountains at all.
It's flat,
It's flat.
green,
Green.
It's green.
beautifully
Yes.
green. When you're in California, you appreciate green.
Uh-huh.
When you're in Indiana and you go around the country, you don't appreciate green.
No.
But when you're in California, you're like, man, this is like, we were in Georgia recently and I was like, man, this is green.
Too bad you weren't there like maybe next month. You'd see all the changes of
It's
colors.
beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, you know, being from Indiana, when we got out to California, Arizona, you know, the desert is just as
It's pretty
beautiful.
cool.
I mean, it is really, but you have to get off the beaten path to really explore it and enjoy it. I mean, there's beauty in the desert, even though it looks all the same color, you know.
It's funny, the freedom you're talking about is, to me, lots of times just about experience.
Mm-hmm.
For me and the kids, like my 4 and 5-year-old, for me, that freedom to be present with them is it's why we waited till our late 30s to have kids.
Right.
A lot of people love to have kids in their 20s, and then by the time they're 40, they're kind of empty nesters. But for us, we waited. And so for, kind of the same reason as I wanted to be able to be financially in a place where I can just, take that extra time with them. I can go on a Monday to a museum with them, or
Right.
to a ball game with them, which is pretty cool. But now you guys, it's all about the grandkids, right?
Well, even our grandkids are older.
Are they?
Yeah, our youngest is 16.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's why another reason why he wanted to get me out.
Well,
was
you look
before
young.
they
You look
started-
younger than Ray, so.
Well, I am. He wanted to get me out before the grandkids started having kids, because then he was sure I wasn't
You'd be
going to.
stuck, yeah.
I wouldn't leave. Yeah. So, yeah, we was at a point in time in our life where none of them really needed us anymore. So it was time for us. We'd worked for them all these years. It was time for us. So I don't feel guilty about that at all.
For so many people in America are in your situation. They're where you were 5 years ago, right? And we're like, they know retirement's coming. Finances are a question mark, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not a question mark in the sense like, oh, we can't retire, but it is a question mark like, how are we going to retire? What's that
What
lifestyle?
can we do? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what are we going to be able to do? And so many of them are on that journey. They're like searching for some kind of answers, and I don't even mean necessarily real estate, right? Real estate's our answer, but they're searching constantly. What advice would you give them? What would you tell them?
I would say follow your dream. I mean, everybody is going to wants to retire down the road. So whatever. I mean, you don't have to travel to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was just one of our
Bucket lists.
projects that we wanted to do. But you just really need to follow your dream, and
do it now. Don't
don't
wait and say, I'm going to do that in 5 years. I'm going to do that in 2 years. We don't know what tomorrow brings. You've got to live today, and as if it's your last. And we don't. People say, how long are you going to RV? We don't know. I always say until Ray can't drive it anymore. When he can't drive it anymore, I guess we'll quit. But we don't know how. We're blessed that we're healthy. We're blessed that we can do it financially, and don't wait. Just don't wait and think that you're going to do it tomorrow. I know too many people that said, "Oh, we were going to travel, but my husband died," or we thought we had time. You gotta live today.
we got to thank the good Lord for good health. I mean,
Yeah.
to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So.
And health is an interesting question in today's world where so many people are health scared.
Yes.
So it's kind of a different kind of thing. But on the dream thing, I find it so amazing that when the intentionality to dream becomes reality, like I'm right now, I'm going to work towards my dream. How things in the world begin to align, and things begin to happen, right? That are unforeseen, that you can't see, to make everything okay.
Right.
And that's people's biggest fears. Like, am I going to be okay? Am I going to have enough money? Am I going to be able to this, when they start working towards their dream, right? And I find it's fascinating how much I believe that the universe, right, conspires to allow people's dreams to come true, but most people never truly move in the direction of a dream. Thinking about a dream does nothing.
Right.
And that's the misnomer of like that Secret, right? The movie The Secret. If you guys have
Yes. Mm-hmm.
that's the part of The Secret that I think is really weak, is that like thinking about it doesn't do shit,
Mm-mm.
in my opinion.
Right.
But the movement towards it, right? The actual action behind it, things start to align. And every time there's something that you put into, like if this is the dream and you have 6 other cups, and each of these cups are slightly in the way towards the dream, the removal of each of those cups that stand in the way of the dream,
It's scary.
allows the dream to be real.
But it's scary in some ways.
But sometimes you depend on those cups.
Yes.
That's the challenge, like
Yes.
the stable income, right?
Yes.
That's one of the hardest ones for a lot of people in their 40s, 50s, even 60s. It's like, I have a stable income, but I have this dream.
Mm-hmm.
but you can't achieve the dream unless you let go of the crutch.
Yes.
And it's difficult because I'm not saying it's easy even for a second.
No.
You know, it's selfish of me to say everybody can, because I did it in my 20s when I didn't have kids, and you know, like, what was I really going to lose?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
and so for people that have something to lose, it's a lot harder. Even for you guys, there would have been a lot less to lose than someone, you know, when their kids are still in their house and different things. You might have lost your retirement, which would have been horrible.
Right.
But at the same time, yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
It is. It is.
I think once you retire, if you can make your life simpler. So when we sold our house and sold all of our stuff, everything, it was really a big load off of our.
Well, it was easier for you to get rid of things than it was me.
It's just material stuff, you know.
It's just stuff, and it is just stuff. Once you figure out it's just stuff, it really doesn't, you know, even though you may have collected it all those years, you worked hard for it. At the end of the day, nobody wanted it. I mean, we donated most of it, sold some of it, but that was an obstacle, as you were talking, that was in my way. And once I got past that was it was easy.
I mean, getting rid of stuff should be something people do every year of their life anyways. Just tax-wise, financially, you should be getting rid of stuff every year.
Right.
But a lot of people don't understand tax
Right.
code in that way. But donations is a good.
Oh, it's a big
really
thing.
good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So that and that was very freeing. You know, we didn't have all that stuff that we had to deal with.
You also didn't have a monthly cost.
Right.
When you get rid of a lot of things in your life, you get rid of a lot of the monthly nut,
Mm-hmm.
which is the balance of freedom, right? Is when you can cover the nut
Mm-hmm.
indefinitely, then you're free.
Right.
Right.
And that's
Right.
nobody teaches that in school. Like
No.
here's the mathematical equation. You go get a job, you get a nicer apartment. You go get a better job, you get a nicer car. You go get a better job, you get a house. Get another better job, you get a nicer house. Nobody teaches the equation that you need to understand when it comes to finances. I actually heard Shaq give one the other day, and he was talking about, you know, he was talking to some different mentors between rich and wealthy and different things, and people that were telling him, you know, we'll save 10%, right? And then he was talking to some people that, you know, that were rich, and he was like, we'll save 25%, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was talking about, and forgive me if someone's out there listening and I screw this up, but he was like, say you put 75% into production, right? That 75% of your income goes into making more income, into producing more wealth. And then you take the 25% and you do whatever the hell you want with it, right? And the rest of the world be damned. Granted, he's dealing in a different financial
Right.
stratosphere than other people, but I'm thinking to myself, like, man, if I was like in my 20s and I started putting 75% towards income, that money producing more income for me, I mean, I might have lived kind of a poverty lifestyle for a little while, but the way it would have started to accelerate would have been, I mean, I can't imagine 30 years ago what the difference of life is.
Right.
My kids invest.
Mm-hmm.
They're 5 years old.
Yeah.
Micah and Antonio bring me money and say, Dad, I'm investing this so you can give me back more money. That's how they see it. Or Micah will bring me money and he'll be like, Dad, go buy us a house. I don't know where they find money. Like on the ground, in stores, little kids, they find money all the time. It's
They're
interesting.
closer to the ground. They see it.
They see it. Their eyes are better too.
Yeah.
Cool. What do you guys think about what's going on in the world, you know, today with, you know, politics, chaos, COVID, chaos, you know, and those kind of things? Like, just how do you guys take all that in and view all of it?
To be honest, I'll say, and I think you do too, we just don't pay attention to a lot of it. You know, we do our own thing. We didn't even know, this is going to sound really funny to a lot of people, we didn't even know COVID was happening.
Mm-hmm.
We had driven home to a funeral from Houston, came back to Houston, went to the grocery store, and it was nuts in there. And we're like, what's going on? And seriously, we had no idea that, you know, cities were shutting down, that this whole COVID was taking over. We just had we had no idea. And the riots, we stayed away from that. We just stay away from the news a lot,
Mhm.
you know. So I personally, we just go out and do our own thing, and we don't worry about everybody else.
Yeah, we stay. You know, I have a news on my phone that I check once in a while, but as far as watching the news or stuff like that, there's so much different chaos, and everybody's got their own opinions. And
Well, you knew who Kobe was,
Yeah.
yeah,
but you didn't know who Jordan Peterson was. So, you know, I can understand the context of it for sure.
Mhm.
and then we stay in smaller cities. We don't go into the big cities.
Mhm.
You know, we do go into Houston because you know we're
Working there.
working there. But as far as actually going into big cities, we stay away from them. Go to the smaller towns because it's just a lot easier and
Simpler, and
To
we
get
can
in
do
and
that.
out of.
simpler.
Mhm.
And
Well, when you're
so-
driving an RV, big cities are difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
How
Is
big's the? You said Fleetwood, right?
it's a 37-foot Fleetwood
37
motorhome diesel pusher.
Yeah,
And
maybe.
then I'm towing.
So
a
it's not
Jeep
that big.
behind
Is it
it.
outside?
No.
You guys are. It's at a park,
Yes.
and then you drove here.
Yes.
She looked at me like,
well, it's
you're
funny.
such an idiot.
No, because
I haven't gotten that look from you very many times over the years.
many people will do that, though. I think
Oh,
it's so
you'd be
funny. They'll
surprised.
say, well, I don't know if you can drive the motor home here or not. And I'm like, we don't drive it everywhere. We
Go to a
go,
park.
we go to a park, we park it, we take our Jeep, we explore, and we go places and we do things. And yeah, we don't drive the motor home all over the place. Ray drives. I try, because I'm the navigator. He calls me a navigator sometimes, but Ray tries to, I try to get him. I mean, he's only behind the wheel maybe 4 or 5 hours. That's it. You know, we're retired. We don't have to run from one place to another, and we park and we stay at that place as long as we care to stay. You know, we explore around, do what we want to do, pack up, move again. So yeah, we don't drive the RV all over the place.
So there's a lot of members who want us to put RV parking at
I'm one of them.
at the regional centers for the survivalist project
Mhm.
and stuff. For you guys, how do you choose locations? Where do you go look? Like, how do you decide where you're headed as you travel?
That's a good question.
Well, we look to
Kinda.
see what we stay north in the summer, south in the winter.
Mhm.
We look to see what we want to see. Like this year, we decided we were going to go to Washington and Oregon, and we were going to go to the Redwoods. We was going to go Northern California, but the fires kind of put a damper on that. And then as far as the parks go, you know, we belong to a group that has RV parks, and then there's just so many out there. So we want full hookup. You know, we could boondock. A lot of people boondock, and boondocking's where you just go out on BLM
Mhm.
property, and you're self-contained, because we have a generator. And as long as we carry water, we could do that. We prefer to be more
So
glamping, I guess.
Yeah,
you
I
know,
mean,
it's our life.
RV living's glamping, right? It's
Right.
It's not camping,
No,
right?
not at all, because people
It's-
call it a camper, and I
No.
say it's not our camper; it's our home.
It's not a tent.
It's not a tent, and we just like to be more civil. We like to be in the parks. We like the security of the parks. You
and
know,
most of them are gated.
Mhm.
You know that we're in, so we don't have to worry about somebody ripping us off or anything like that. So
never feel afraid. I
Mm.
mean, so
I mean, I don't find so in like for me, right? I see like the opiate epidemic, and I see places where there's homeless and places where there's people with addictions wandering streets and neighborhoods you never would have seen before.
right.
exactly.
I don't see much of that in national parks. I don't see much of that around. I mean, I see the community. I mean, there is good and bad people everywhere in the world.
Right.
I see a lot fewer bad people in a wilderness group, in an
Yes.
outdoorsy group. I mean, you always still need to be aware and careful in life, but I think there's a lot more safety in those numbers and in those
Yes.
worlds than there is. And you know, It's not that people that have addictions are bad people,
No.
but they're not in control. And that's
Right.
what a lot of people don't understand. It's not that like addicts want to rob somebody or kill somebody or hurt somebody, but they're not in control. And
Well, they're
kinda
they're
scary when you-
there for the next fix,
Yeah.
and whatever it takes to get that next fix
and the longer between fixes, the more they're willing to do
to get there.
to get there,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
I was within a few miles of where I live in a really nice suburb, outside of Los Angeles, but we're 45 minutes away from Los Angeles. I literally I have one of my brother-in-laws and I's houses are 5 minutes from each other, and he lives in a good neighborhood, but literally in the drive between his house and my house, I could see 10 to 15 street wanderers
Mhm.
easily with addictions, and that just that's a change in our
Mm-hmm.
country that's kind of mind blowing for me.
Yeah, and I see that coming down the pipeline because of the people not paying their rent. Eventually, this moratorium is going to stop, and
Is it?
who knows?
I don't think it is.
It might. I don't.
I don't think they're going to stop it.
Not for some time. I don't know.
I think society's changed forever. That's really my true opinion. Is I don't think they're going to lift the mortgage moratorium anytime soon. I don't think they're going to lift the eviction moratorium completely. They've lifted parts of it already, actually, but
Right.
I think it's I think people who pay, and even when they get sick and even when they struggle, people who pay,
Right.
and I think people who don't pay.
Right.
And I think when people need help, you help them. But help isn't continuous forever.
Right.
And continuous forever is dependency. It's not help.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And so that's kind of how. But I don't think it's going away. I think there's going to be a homeless. If there's videos that, gosh, we got to find those, right? But there's videos I talked about, like I was in 2018, 2019. I said the homeless pandemic that's coming is on proportions that we can't even understand. And what you see right now, I think 2 years from now, it's 4 or 5 times bigger.
Wow. Yeah.
I think 1 million people in Los Angeles, they say potentially it's 1 million homeless / transient, right? In Southern California, I think it'd be 4 to 5 million people in 3 to 4 years.
Wow.
I think that's how bad the opioid epidemic is. I
Mhm.
think that's how bad it's coming, and people want to trust pharmaceuticals, and it's kind of my anti-pharma thing. Is like, you trusted them. They created the largest homeless population in the history of the world. There's nowhere in the world we've seen in a first world country that you've seen this kind of homeless
No.
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 population. And it's
No.
and it's more based on the opiate epidemic than anywhere. And literally a company just admitted to it, and they got fined billions of dollars, but they made $100 billion and they got fined $5 billion.
Yeah.
And they created the largest, nobody talks about that pandemic anymore.
Right.
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 Nobody talks about, the distraction of COVID away from a pandemic that's killing and destroying a lot more lives than COVID is,
Mm-hmm.
which is, maybe that's just my opinion, but
No, I
No,
agree.
I agree.
I do
Yeah.
too. And used to the homeless was more mentally ill,
yeah,
and not that an addiction isn't a mental illness, but now it's more addiction.
it's a chosen
Related.
mental illness, and then it becomes a non-chosen mental illness.
Yes,
And that's the problem.
that is a
when
big problem.
when they can no longer choose because it is a disease.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I grew up with addicts, so I understand
Yep, me too.
pretty deep, through, I went through the AAs and the Al-Anons and the 12 steps for a Christian and everything else. And just to understand, just to have an idea
Mm-hmm.
of it. So you grew up with addicts too?
Yes, my father was an alcoholic,
Mm-hmm.
and actually all my uncles drank. I
Mhm.
thought that was just normal. I thought all men got drunk like that. I just
Yeah.
thought it was a normal life.
That's just the craziness.
Mhm.
I feel like one of my oldest brothers, really struggled with addiction, and he's was, been homeless. He's 16 years older than me. And I feel like the addictions my parents had were functional when he grew up,
Mm-hmm.
and they were dysfunctional when I grew up. And I think that's what helped me recognize it, because it was so bad that, like, why would anyone want to live like that?
Right.
But
That
when
makes a lot of sense, yeah, because my brothers and sisters were further apart as well, and they have a different look on their childhood than I do. And I was the youngest, so I think that it was very dysfunctional by the time I came along.
Yeah, I was the youngest as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the youngest gets the worst of the addictions, I think, when
Mm-hmm.
in those kind of families. I was one of his sons. We went to a funeral recently, and I got a chance to spend with one of his sons, right? And his son had that great perspective of having seen what his dad had been through and been through his own challenges, right? But he's doing really well, and he was like, so there's a conversation came up about his dad, and he's like, well, my dad's a grown ass man, so he'll figure out what he's going to do, and it's nothing to
Good
do
for
with
him.
what I'm going to do.
Uh-huh.
But that's hard for someone in their 20s. Almost
Yeah.
impossible.
Almost impossible.
Almost impossible. I was 16 or 17 when I was 16 when I said I'm done, and I completely cut them out of my lives. And there's some pain with that, but I could never have become who I needed to become by continuing to have them as a part of my lives. And they passed away by the time I was 20. But my older brothers, none of them had that choice.
Mm-hmm. Fortunately, my dad quit drinking 7 years before he died, but he died very young. You know, he was 57 when he died.
And I think fortunately too, my dad quit drinking before he died too, but his mental state was already gone.
Mm-hmm.
I think with my oldest brother, I think he's, mentally fighting that kind of challenge from the time where he, went through what he went through. And I think that's something that people don't talk about with addicts either, is
No.
like, even if they stopped giving into the addiction, the disease doesn't go away, but they stop giving into the addiction and they fought the addiction, the mental state for many of them will never be the same.
Right.
Which is, a whole different conversation.
Mhm.
So now that we let the conversation turn quite morbid for a little bit,
Just life.
just life.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the interesting part, is we're all living life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the respect of other people living life is something that I feel in America is really a difficult conversation. I see that as like with the vaccines one, people get vaccinated. I respect them. I stand behind them. Good for you. That's your choice you made. I have family, that made that choice. And if somebody wants to make the choice not to be vaccinated, and I have family that's chosen not to be vaccinated, I respect them, and that's their life, and I choose it. So I don't know. It's interesting when you look at people care too much about how somebody lives their individual life, I think.
Yeah, I do too. And I think back to our RVing, it just worked out to be a great time. I mean, we went in 2019 in the fall, and then the pandemic hit,
You have emptier parks, or the parks are just as full?
They were empty. A lot of them.
Some of them were empty, but for a while, and then a lot of homeschooling, a lot of families. There's a lot more families than just couples. What we noticed in the RV parks is the clubhouses being closed and the pools being closed and things like that. But other than that, I mean, our life went on, and we didn't even really think about the pandemic as it's consumed so many others.
Mm-hmm.
We just really haven't.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating because a large part of the American population is in cities.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you call them city folk. I grew up in cities. I live outside of one of the biggest cities. And it's interesting because for them to think about it not being a present part of their everyday life is almost impossible for 60%
Yes.
of America.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, our friends would say, "Now be safe." That city, they've got a lot of COVID cases and
Now, have you guys caught it? Have you
No.
gotten COVID?
No.
I need to get one of the antibody tests because I believe I may have caught it, but I haven't tested a lot because of different environments where I have to get tested on a regular basis. We've been through multiple phases here with the company where I think one phase we went through with a marketing team went through it pretty intensely, and then we had another one of our teams here that went through it pretty intense. And it's funny, we have quite a few people that vaccinated that got COVID, and people that were unvaccinated that got COVID, and so we've experienced both. And it's just fascinating because here in our company, I think there's a lot of respect and understanding of what everybody's going through and a lot of support. But we just went through a COVID scare for 24 hours ago, but nobody ended up having it, which was
Yeah, we were here for
really
that.
blessing.
That was our first testing.
What did that? Oh, that was
our
the
very
first. Oh, you
first
guys went and
testing.
got tested.
Yeah, because we were here.
How was that experience?
It was an experience.
It
It's an
was,
experience.
you know what?
He didn't think it was bad.
I did, yeah. I thought,
Which one did you do? Did you do the cotton tip up the nose? I sneeze like crazy. I can't control it. It's the poor person. I always warn them.
Maybe that's why he said,
it's like I cannot.
we went to the same place you did. And he said,
Oh,
if
did
you're
you?
going to sneeze or cough, you need to let me know.
I let him know beforehand. I said before we even start, just know I'm going to sneeze. Like I can't. I mean, I'll cover and everything, but
right.
I can't. I
didn't
don't know what
think
it
it
is.
was
Something
bad.
that far up my nose. I can't
Yeah.
stop it. So
That is, like a tingle or, you know, like you're going to sneeze. But
even in sports, if I got hit in the nose, I would start sneezing crazily. It was just like whatever for reaction for me. So good. Also,
Yeah, that was our first experience.
good.
Welcome to California.
Welcome
That's
to
what we was
California.
told.
You got to California and you had to get a COVID test.
We've been all over, and yeah.
Cool.
But again, you know, we were in proximity. We was in an office. We're not usually that way. We're not usually
I mean,
out and about.
I mean, I think the great thing about COVID is like, I believe in being an immunity beast, right? And what I mean by that is I believe in taking the things in life that keep my immune system incredibly high, you know, high vitamin D and high vitamin C and, you know, a decent amount of exercise. And I'm not a exercise nut like some people, you know, good for them. I wish I was, but
I wish I was too.
right. Don't we all? But my eating, you know, I try to keep pretty strong and the other vitamins and things, but I've been faced with it like probably a half dozen times with people I know afterwards had COVID and I didn't get it. So I've been really, really, really lucky and blessed. We've had a few people in the, you know, around our circles that have passed away from it. And I mean, all of them I know for a fact had, you know, other things going on in their life at the same time,
Right.
you know, health wise. But yeah, it's an interesting time.
Well, and I think the immunity is the key there.
Mhm.
Absolutely. You know, we get vitamin D from being outside too. You know, we're out in the sun. We're out.
walking.
And in my opinion, I just hate the mask thing. I just hate it. If we go somewhere and we have to wear a mask, we just don't go.
Yeah. Like if I'm in a place and somebody asks me to wear a mask, I put it on because it's not worth
Exactly.
the discussion or conversation.
Exactly.
And I do it really as politely because half the time they're enforcing someone else's rules
Right.
and they don't want to have a discussion about it anymore
No.
than anyone else. But there is proven science that impeding someone's breathing is bad for an immune system.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I understand the protection, you know, trying to be respectful and of other people because it makes certain people really uncomfortable. Like when I see
Yeah, it
people
does.
driving in their cars with masks on or
walking down the street by themselves.
with a dog and
Yeah.
they're out for a hike and they're by themselves, nobody within a long distance and they're wearing a mask. I just feel empathy,
I do too.
you know, that they're have that much fear in their life. So
Mhm.
these guys are writing something like it's time to wrap it up, but we can wrap it up anyways. So Ray's already talked more today than he likes to talk than he ever likes to talk.
Well, Kenny says he doesn't smile.
I see Ray smiles all the
I know
time.
he does now.
I'm happy.
Well, good. I'm happy too. So that's a good feeling.
It is a good
Freedom.
feeling.
Freedom does that for you.
Freedom does that for you. It really does.
Well, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for asking
Thanks
us.
for asking us.
I just, with what we do, I just feel it's like people hear from me or they hear us teach or they hear something. I think something like this is just so much more real for people understanding like there's a better way, there's a better path. There's, you know, I hate to use the word awakening because people think that, you know, like with woke culture, that's not what we mean. There's just, I think when you struggle and you fight for a lifetime and you wake up to a better way, you know, the more you can do that for other people is kind of a responsibility.
Mhm.
Exactly.
And we've learned a lot from you, a whole lot. We really have.
Well,
And we've enjoyed it.
And also, I mean, it's like you're like family. I
Mhm.
mean, we've been together for so long. Dory, I mean,
You got to
I
tell
love
us.
him to pieces. He's awesome.
Yeah,
you
my
know.
brother's a giver.
He is a giver. He is.
He's a big giver. He's got a big ass heart.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm. And if I have any issues in Houston, I just call him and me and him think alike. So
And Molly and I think alike.
Sure
So
helps.
Ray calls Dory and I call Molly.
It's people would criticize at one point for being a family-based business, right?
Mhm.
And they're like, well, you can't grow a big business as a family-based business. You can't grow a big business, with this or that. And I think I've realized that like one of the true powers of our business is like is the family and the extended family unit, right? My brother Dory and Molly run, Philadelphia and property management for the company. Dory runs all residential real estate for the company, right? My brother-in-law Vinny runs social media. My sister-in-law is our director of HR, right?
Mhm.
My wife does media buying for the company. My business partner Amy is family, and she has numerous people that are part of her inner circle that work with the company, right? I remember we had a void in our marketing department, and I went through and called a friend, right, that I had known for a long time. I hadn't talked to him in a few years, but knew for a long time, and came on board and joined the company, right? And it's funny, Dusty, was in charge of ranches and ranch acquisition. I knew him for years, as a friend before I asked him to come on board and
Mhm.
work with the company. But I think great people make great people. It doesn't matter.
If they're family or not.
Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
there's family you choose and family you're born with too. So
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the Hard Money Podcast with Dutch Mendenhall. Don't forget to visit our website, economicactivist.com.